It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K, in case you didn't know.
Like Kit Kat with a K?
Correct. Absolutely. Good way to put it. Let's see. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, over by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. Talk about a good night out and head over and catch a movie. Go to Quaker Steak and Lube, grab yourself some dinner, because it'll save you some money than getting dinner at the movie theater. Then you go over to the movie theater, watch yourself maybe the latest movie that comes out, and then as you're done for the night, you want to get a little bit of an energy kick back into your system, head over to Joe's Karting, and you can do a little indoor karting at fast-paced white-knuckle speeds.
Can't you get another race if you skip the movie?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm skipping the movie. But do not overeat at Quaker Steak and Lube if you're going to go jump in the cart. That will not be pretty.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, you do seriously pull some good G's in some of those. I mean, there's everything. Every time I've taken somebody new there, the surprise of the night is how their forearms hurt. Because it's, you talk about some of these sprint car guys that the first time they hop into a bigger engine, maybe it's a 360 goes to a 410. And my uncle told me this when he used to race midgets. He said the first time that I raced a full sprint car, they reminded me, don't forget to breathe. And he goes, I was 2 laps into it and I started blacking out because I forgot to breathe. And you really do. You don't realize how tight you're gripping onto that steering wheel, and then once you finally relax and let go, you're like, oh my God, that was a death grip I had on that thing. But it's a great time.
Yep, and if you're there, they've got a big contest running through the end of July where you can win yourself a ride in a sprint car, a modified or a dirt late model at a couple of the local tracks. They've got it going on through Kenny Wallace Driving Experience. They've got a new handicap timing system, so even the chubby guys like myself got a chance to win that ride.
Let's talk about Dover International Raceway. I think this is kind of becoming a little bit of the status quo. It was kind of a calm race through most of it. We had a green racetrack. We had a competition caution to start the race. It was kind of a wet weekend last weekend at Dover. And then all of a sudden, just hell broke loose. And it went from, I think we had a debris caution and a wreck caution, and then it just exploded. I'm kind of thinking start off the top of the head was Jimmy Johnson. I mean, what a weird thing to have happen. It sounded like he had a transmission issue from what he reported.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said, but I just think he thought he was racing at Talladega.
That could have been. He was just it was going really slow to get started.
Yeah,
but it was so funny to watch because, and I could say funny because nobody got hurt, thank God. That could have been a very bad situation, but Jimmy said that he was going from 3rd to 4th, and he was in the neutral gate, and he could not get it to come out of neutral. And I believe Kevin Harvick was starting behind him. Kevin rams him and then backs off the throttle, and then here comes Martin Truex Jr., and he didn't get stopped, and he slams into Kevin.
Oh, just the accordion.
And it creates
Seen
the accordion
it a million times.
And then just when you think it's all over with, here comes Kyle Busch piling into it, because these guys get to see a little picture out of the front of their windows. And when you're in the mind of, I mean, there is such a smooth transition from throttle up to 1st to 2nd to 3rd to 4th with those glide shifters they have. I mean, they hardly have to come off the throttle. They don't clutch. And I mean, no, and it just shifts so easily, so smoothly that there's no time for reaction. I mean, your best guess at Dover, they're in 4th gear by second and a half, 2 seconds, maybe 3.
Well, they're probably restarting in 3rd.
Okay.
So it's probably just one shift right before the start-finish line, and maybe a guy's going to restart in 2nd, but my guess is they're restarting in 3rd.
Caused a big pileup, took out, I think they said 18 cars were involved in that. Several cars were taken out. Martin Truex Jr. just cannot catch a break. Kyle Busch was out of it. Jimmy Johnson obviously out of it. Denny out of it? No, Denny ended up finishing that race. Jimmy Johnson, the whole start of the whole thing, it was basically a Talladega big one, and because there's nowhere to go on that track.
Oh no, it's self-cleaning. It's not very wide.
If that happens at a lot of other tracks, they're able to go down into the grass to avoid the situation. But there's a safer barrier on either side, and you're not going anywhere.
There's no safer barrier on the front stretch on the outside.
Tony Stewart found it during practice that there is no safer barrier, and NASCAR ended up coming out earlier this week and saying we're going to take a look at that. And let me just ask this. It's a rhetorical question, but how many more times do drivers have to find the non-safer barrier walls, and NASCAR has to come out and say, we're going to take a look at it before they say, okay, guys, there's a 5-year plan or there's a 5-race plan. You got to cover your entire track with safer barrier, because I don't care what the statistics say. You don't cover a 3-foot area, drivers are going to find it.
Well, and I'm telling you, plain and simple, the thing there is the track, when you start about that safer barrier, is about 4 foot.
Yeah.
So you're taking 4 foot on the outside of the track, the racing surface.
The width of it, yeah, you're right.
Exactly. That track's not real wide.
I didn't think of that at all, but that's a good point. That's a great point for that. Can they adjust the wall in then? I mean, that's a big construction project.
Their pit road, they said the other day, was only 27 foot wide, which is 3 cars. Okay,
it's the
so you've got
wall.
the pit stalls, which is 1 car wide. Then that means you got lanes for 2 cars. There ain't no room on a pit road either.
Yeah, that's good. So maybe there isn't just anything they can do. Matt Kenseth ends up getting the win, but boy, Kyle Larson, you want to talk about giving it the college
that last
try.
40 laps, the 24 and the 42, did some racing.
I've tried so hard this week to get Kyle on the show, but he's a little busy, being kind of a big time driver.
We need to use our hookup with Rico to get Kyle Larson on.
Well, his PR guy, Davis, has been fantastic with us. He sent us some great prizes both years for the Pick'ems contest. He's gotten us access most of the times we've gone to Kansas. I didn't try for it this May. I don't think I tried for it, but I'm going to try for it in October. But I want to ask him about how much the UNO late model race back in 2013. It was the first time I ever heard of Kyle Larson. Well, no, I guess I take that back, because I'd heard of him for the World of Outlaws earlier that year. No, it was later that year, because he was racing a partial schedule, and I think that was when I don't need to argue about it on the air because we have little time left in the show today. But it was one of the first times I'd ever heard of Kyle Larson, and it was at Speed Weeks in Daytona. It was February 2013, and he has a race between C.E. Falk and him. Comes down to the last lap. If you watch any of this stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But Kyle bumped him coming out of 4, and then my own opinion, I think he wrecked him coming along the front stretch to get the win. And Kyle said after that race, that's not the kind of reputation I want to get. I am not a wreck him to win it kind of a guy. I don't want to have that kind of a reputation. And I wonder if that had anything to do with he had 3 opportunities to wreck Matt.
Well,
and I guess I shouldn't say it that way, because then that's the bad connotation. I think he had 3 good opportunities to move Matt.
Well,
to basically do what Carl Edwards did to Kyle Busch at Bristol.
And he might have been trying to get there and maybe just couldn't get him. He might not have been able to hook up to get that extra 1.5 that he needed to go ahead and bump him. That
was an awesome last 35 laps with Kyle Larson and Kenseth battling for it. And then when Kyle wouldn't be able to clear him and he'd fall back, then he'd fall into the clutches of Chase Elliott, and man, that was an amazing last few laps. That's the kind of racing that will bring this sport back to the big time that it was in the 90s.
I mean, if he turns around and gets fired the next week or 2 from Ganassi Racing, because Ganassi hasn't run a race now in like 2 years, I think, since 13, I think, in Talladega.
Yeah.
When Jamie Mack won. That's their last win. And, I think Chip might have been on the radio telling him, knock him out of the way.
He's got to have pressure, but he said it post-race, he may regret it, but my time's coming. And I think he's absolutely right. I think all the fans, especially the dirt fans, expected him to have his win by now, especially the way he blew onto the scene in his freshman year. He had kind of struggled his sophomore season, and now he's into his 3rd year. But I think the sophomore in his 3rd year have more to do with Chip Ganassi Racing just can't keep up technology-wise with Hendrick and Joe Gibbs and Stewart-Haas and Penske, which are your big winners of the year so far.
Yeah, they are. If we can take a second, I want to step back to the Kansas race, because we got some more clarification. For anybody who didn't watch pre-race and listen to Larry Mack talk about the Martin Truex new invention of how to lose a race, the bolt head that everybody was talking about that holds the rotor on actually holds a spacer plate up against the rotor and into the hub. It's a tapered head bolt that literally mounts flush with the spacer plate. Mm-hmm. For that bolt to break in the first place is just out there. It's probably a 30 or 40 cent bolt, and just the way it's designed and stuff, it's not designed for it to break in any way, shape, or form. So the fact that it broke is one thing. The fact that it just fell straight down and landed on the top of a stud is, you went from a million to one thing to a quintillion to one thing happening.
Yeah.
And like Larry said, they tried for hours to simulate that
back at the race shop, yeah,
and could not get it to happen. I mean, that's just how odd it was. But that's just Martin right now, man.
And that's been him the last couple of years. The guy has led so many laps and been a contender for so many races and ends up finishing top 5 instead of getting the win. Matt Kenseth, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Casey Kane, and Kurt Busch all get top 5s. Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., and Trevor Bayne end up finishing top 10. Again, Martin Truex Jr. led 2 times at 47 laps, had a great car. I think Kevin Harvick probably had one of the best cars, but he's not very happy with his pit crew this week, Kevin Harvick, I mean.
Imagine that.
I think when you talk about it being a team effort, they lost as a team, but I think you could definitely point to it and say, guys, come on. We got to get this figured out. And I imagine there's going to be some changes before Charlotte next week with that pit crew. Maybe it's just some extra practice time, or maybe some new guys start coming in, but that was every time he came on, he lost a couple of positions. But we got a big show lined up for you today. Scott Bloomquist is going to be just around the corner in turn number 2 to get you ready for the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway this Tuesday.
May 24th, be there.
This coming Tuesday, Tommy Johnson Jr., we're going to talk NHRA. They're down at the Kansas Nationals Friday and Saturday of yesterday.
Hartland Park.
They're racing for the finals today, so you can still get your tickets. We're going to talk to Tommy about his season and what it's like to be in one of those cars.
What it's like is 100 miles an hour in 60 feet.
Oh, my God. I can't believe it. And then in turn 4, barring we have time, because Scott loves to talk, and we love to talk to Scott.
And we'll let him talk.
Yeah, we'll let him talk as long as possible. We're going to try to preview the I-80, Go 50, and the USMTS at Crawford County Speedway. A lot of big racing coming up this weekend. Today's the NHRA Kansas Nationals. Tuesday is the Go 50. Wednesday is the USMTS at Crawford County Speedway. So hopefully Jesse Sobbing, who was well on his way to winning that race last year but had a flat tire, can defend it, can come back and win that race and get another win on the season. He won a couple of weeks ago. But so that's the way that all rolls out as far as Dover is concerned. We're going to take a break. We're going to wrap it up here. We're going to head over and talk to Scott Bloomquist, give us plenty of time to talk to Scott. Then Tommy Johnson Jr. comes on in turn 3, and then we'll wrap up the show in turn 4. Thanks a lot for hanging in there. This is The Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the radio show, heading into turn number 2, and it's time to preview the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway, featuring the guy who has won the race 2 times in a row that he's been to I-80 Speedway, and we're talking about the Silver Dollar Nationals, first driver to go back-to-back at the Silver Dollar Nationals. Scott Bloomquist, driver of the number 0 Lucas Oil Late Model. How you doing, Scott?
Good, real good. Just working hard, getting ready for the weekend.
You know, you're having one hell of a start to the season, 6 wins on the season. Is this one of the best starts you've had in recent memory?
Yeah, I think so. We've had a few decent starts, but never looking as serious as what we are now. You know, I mean, you win some races, but you don't always dominate and really have a strong performances like what we've been having. So I mean, I'm looking forward to a good season here.
So with this kind of a start to the season, are you kind of starting to aim towards maybe getting yourself the points championship, or is that something that's not really big on your radar?
We actually set out starting the season with that in mind. You know, even last year we had intentions of trying to win a championship, and Jonathan had a good year, and and we had a bad start, and we come out of Florida, 500 some points behind, and just fought all year to try to even catch back up, and got within 50 at the end, and had a couple of rainouts right at the end. So we're sitting a lot better, absolutely, than what we have been.
Heading in here on Tuesday, you've got to have a bucket full of confidence in your trailer there for I-80 Speedway, correct?
Oh yeah. We got our older car that we won with actually the last 2 years, and then our new car that we have only run a few times now, and it's the one we won this weekend, the race, the Buckeye race, and we won the race at Batesville with it. So it's showing a lot of promise too. So we still got Old Faithful in the trailer to fall back on. It's nice having two. You don't really care which one you race.
You're used to racing I-80 Speedway in July for the Silver Dollar Nationals. That's been the 6 times you've came. But now you're going to be coming in May, a couple of months early. Do you expect the track to be any different?
Well, I don't know if they've raced on it. I really haven't looked into it too much. So, I'm sure it depends on weather, rain, and how much rain they've had out there. And then
we've had plenty, by the way.
Yeah, so it might be a lot heavier than normal. It's just really hard to predict. Just try not to really think about stuff like that. There's not anything that we won't be able to adjust for. Once we see what we're up against. We're used to. We've been traveling for so long and come up against so many different things. It's not a concern.
Do you do much scouting ahead of time? I know you just kind of briefly touched on that about, you haven't really looked into it too much, but do you do scouting ahead of time before you get to a track about the amount of rain or heat that the area's had recently?
Yes, not really, because again, until you get there and you just see it before you at the moment. And, we've got over a 70% wind ratio for my entire career, my first visit to a racetrack, which, that kind of lets you know that I don't know nothing about the place. We just roll with it pretty quick. So, there's not too many things we won't be ready for. We prefer not to be too rough, but, the track was pretty rough this last weekend, and we could get right through the stuff. And probably could give the other guys a lot more trouble than did us.
One thing you're going to find up here on Tuesday is it's not going to be 100 degrees like it was last July. I think it's forecast to be in the 70s, so it'll be real decent weather.
That. Yeah, it's been beautiful here. It's been real cool. It's actually almost been kind of cold, in the evening. So the weather is definitely a little bit different. Even this time of year, it's usually starting to get hot, but it's not. So, but I like the weather, and again, like I said, I just hope it doesn't get rough. But no, I really like the racetrack. I'm looking forward to coming back out there, and if the track's different, so be it.
Every year that we get ready to do this interview, I start poking around, doing a little bit more research on you, and there's more and more stories coming up about your the end of your career. When are you going to hang it up? And honestly, kind of seems like this year you're putting that horse way down the road by the way you're winning. What is at some point in time your age has to catch up to your talent, right?
Yes, I would imagine there's probably going to be a time, and that's what I tell people. If there's something that physically or whether it's just some kind of handicap that I can't overcome that makes me feel I can't be competitive to the level that I expect my cars to perform, and myself also. I don't have any interest in just going out and racing. I don't go racing because I just love to drive a race car. We're focused on being sure we can win. I always say to people, I said, the only reason I'm still driving this thing is I've never found anybody who could do a better job. If that happens, I won't be driving.
Well, you're going to be looking for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when that day comes, then I'll be still involved in racing, but I'll just take a seat back. And I've always been so involved in every aspect of the sport, from building the cars to working with other drivers to being the owner, driver, builder, the whole package. That I enjoy the building and creating and designing probably more than I do driving something somebody's got to do, so we do it. But it's just when you get everything right, the driving end is piece of cake. And when you make mistakes or you're not right or you just can't, you end up with some kind of problems, that's when a driver really needs to show up. And that's when it's no fun to be a driver, when you're having to try to make things happen that they really are having a hard time happening.
Yeah, that kind of answers my next question. I was going to ask, in this point in your career, if somebody offered you just a driving spot. Hey, you don't even have to touch it. Just get in and wheel it. Collect your paycheck. You're not going to have any expenses. Is that something that you'd think about? All you'd have to do is probably share your information with a team driver. I'm sure they'd want you in a mentor type capacity. Is that something you'd accept?
I don't know. That's a tough one because I don't think it would be as successful if I couldn't keep my hands and eyes on it. If it was, I've got a couple of buildings here that are big enough to do my team and another team, and probably I'm going to do 3 teams out of the buildings we've got. But I still think that I need to be involved. Even when I raced with Barry, we still went over to. That was in the middle '90s. I still went over once a week and spent a little time and just kind of. It was always involved a lot more than just a normal.
So Scott, you're 185 points behind Jonathan Davenport as the championship series is right now. Wait, I already asked you that question. I didn't realize
No, we're only 85.
Oh, I thought you were 185. My bad.
No, just 85.
Okay. There's the big race going on in December for the Gateway Dirt Nationals, and you confirmed back in April that you were going to be a part of it. Have you raced many indoor races in your career?
I've been to the Chili Bowl twice, and it was pretty good deal. But that's not air that's facility they're going to have for this race, and it's going to be interesting. The size of the racetrack going to be more appropriate. But again, late models are quite a lot larger than a midget. So we just hopefully the racetrack. I mean, the kind of banking I've heard, and I've had a lot of details. They told me about how they're going to do things, and I think it's just going to be a big happening. I think there's going to be a lot of fans. Probably surprise a lot of people. I think how many fans will be there.
I know. I remember one indoor late model race, like in the Pontiac Silverdome, maybe in the early '90s. Do you remember?
I heard about that.
Okay,
yeah, I heard about it, but I know Jack Boggs won it, and that's the only one I ever heard of, and never saw any footage on it, or really don't know much about how everything went. But this sounds like it'll be probably the largest racetrack that you can get in an indoor facility, and it has plenty of capacity for plenty of people to come. So I'm really, really curious to see how big a crowd they're going to get. I think it could be surprising.
Take me back to, we were talking about your career and what you want to do after you hang up the wheel. And again, not to keep dwelling on this, we hope it's a long ways down the road. But do you think maybe you'll take a Tony Stewart approach where you may purchase a speedway, maybe a touring series, and try to go the track owner promoter route?
I don't think so. I think I would be more interested in maybe being a consultant and going around to help racetracks make their facilities into good racetracks, and possibly work on racetracks and shaping and getting them to where we just need more facilities in this sport to be able to run 2-3 wide and not have just a dominant lane or it'd be difficult to pass. And we just keep getting faster, and the faster you go, the harder it gets to pass. And it's just passing. There needs to be heavy competition and passing, and coming up on lap cars, not being able to pass even them, that's terrible. And there's a lot of places still like that. So that, or if somebody come along and wanted to build a racetrack themselves and bring me in on it, and where I had a piece of it, I've got a real good idea for size and shape and quite a unique design racetrack that would be very difficult to ever master, because it'd have so many different types of things to have to deal with. I'd like to try to build a racetrack someday, but I don't think I'm stepping it so deep that I'd want to own it.
I heard a story of a track owner promoter around here back in the 90s that wanted to create a dirt track that had a dog leg on the front stretch. Do you think that would be something that somebody should maybe look into doing?
That's absolutely not.
That's exactly what I said when I heard that idea. It was Craig Kelly, the old owner of Sunset Speedway, talked about it.
I didn't want to call him out.
Okay, let me tell you. I'll just tell you. The only way to consider such a thing like that is being on the back straightaway, and I like dog legs, and I think that's something that's neat to have on at a facility. But the front straightaway needs to be very straight and more bank than the back straightaway, which needs to be the dog leg and flat, and even considerably high bank front straightaway, but very straight. And that way you're not turning and blowing the stands full of dirt.
Yeah, that's a good point. That really crossed my mind.
Well, that's what I've been studying. I kind of overanalyze everything, and I've been analyzing racetracks my whole life, and that's why I said I would like to take a shot at what I have in mind, and I think I could build and create a racetrack that's unlike any I've ever seen, that would race just awesome and be extremely challenging for a driver. And that's kind of the tracks that I end up really liking, or I consider somewhat, my favorite or more favorite than others, are the more difficult racetracks. And I like a challenge, and I'd like to create a track that would be extremely challenging for the driver, and that if you did get your car right, for one part of it, it was kind of wrong for the other part. But you just got to come up with what's the best for both worlds. And but that's why I immediately thought, to what you said, that's absolutely wrong. You do not want a dogleg on the front straightaway, because it's just, you're always turning and you're always just filling the people's eyes with dust and dirt.
But having a track like Darlington with two very different corners would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, I'll give you a little insight. I mean, it's going to it'd have a real wide dogleg back straightaway, and it'd have but let's just start at the flags down. Very high bank, go into one very high bank. I mean, very high bank entrance, and on the entrance. And it starts rolling off in the center of the corner. So, I mean, it's rolling off a lot. And by the exit, it's almost already flat. And then the dog leg of it actually leans the other way. And
it banks the opposite way then?
Yes. He's banked slightly the opposite way. And then your entrance is going to be a real wide, flat entrance, and let it sweep up and just gain bank up until you get to an extreme bank on the edge. And the way, you have so many different ways. And you might have to put a little bit of a bank spot way wide on the entrance, that if somebody wanted to stay in it extra hard, deep, and go use that to get rotated to come off the bottom, which is not going to have much bank. Or if you go in shallow and you go in and you hope like hell that high bank exit catches you, there'd be so much zigzagging and crisscrossing and more stuff going on than people are used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would be. I mean, that's an interesting concept, especially when you threw that little bit of reverse bank down in through the dog leg there in the back straightaway. That would really make things interesting.
Yes, I mean, it would in your entrance, because when you reverse bank that back straightaway a little bit, and you got a dog leg at the same time, it makes it extremely hard to turn.
When I hit the lottery for about $400 million, I'm going to look you up. We're going to buy some land. We're going to give that one a try.
Yeah, I've talked about it a couple of times, and just, I've made drawings, and I've talked to racetracks and messed around. I've even done some track preparation at places and turned them into tracks that had problems into, good racetracks. I know right before the last race, the first year World Outlaws, doing it, that place used to get so rough, and the last thing I wanted was the championship to be decided by someone breaking or, just being hammered down and rough and nasty. And I went there and I spent the whole week working on the racetrack. And by the time we got done, he could run 4 wide, and it just was glassed off. It was just as a vase. And it was a great race, so. Not one car finished. I didn't think they had a car. So it was best one of the best racetracks I'd ever run on.
We're talking about Scott Bloomquist, driving the number 0 to get you set for the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway on Tuesday. Your tickets can be purchased in advance, I80Speedway.com. At the beginning of the year, you guys had a new shock rule for the Lucas Oil Late Model Series. Can you kind of let everybody know what that new shock rule meant to you and how it's working out for the 0 team?
It really didn't mean much to me. We didn't have to change anything. I mean, people speculate and they think, what you're doing. Just this week, we had a little controversy with the series, and they've called us. There's some pictures that someone got they could see through in the left rear wheel well opening, and it appears we have 3 shocks on the left rear, which is not legal. And we had Penske build. You're allowed a limiter for your rear end to not hang. Where you can set how much the left side can fall out in the car. And Penske just ended up making us, by our request, a hollow-bodied shock body with rubbers in it to let the rear end when the rear end's hanging, instead of having just something out there in the open to see. What our rubbers are inside a shock tube, and there's no oil, there's no pistons, there's nothing to do with a shock in it, but it looks like a shock. They've had phone calls all week, and everyone complaining and carrying on, thinking that we're doing something that they're letting us buy with it, which, I showed the series before we ever brought it to a race and made sure that they knew that it wasn't a shock. So everybody will get over that here soon. But no, shocks haven't. We run Penske stuff, and we've got all the shocks we need.
Scott, we haven't talked much about your personal life whenever we've talked to you. How integrated into your race program is your wife? Does she get to go to the track much and support you in that, or does she kind of stay at home and take care of the house stuff?
Well, she has. She all the major events, she's there and works in our souvenir trailer. And now that my daughter, she's 10 now, and she's getting out of 4th grade here this week. And now, everyone will see her and my daughter a lot more. But while my daughter's in school, she has to be here and can't always go. Sometimes she'll come not too far, do the Saturday events. But definitely the major events, everyone will always see her there. And she's been working on the souvenir trailer all day today. So now she's very involved in, the family life into things. I really feel bad about that a lot of times because I spend so much time at the shop, and I'm hoping to get caught up and get ahead enough here soon where I can take some time and do a little bit more. That's not just sitting in the shop.
That's got to be nice to have a wife that can go to the track with you and support you in that, because one of the hardest things about this sport is the travel and that you don't get to spend as much time with the family. But if she's there at the track with you, then you get to take care of one of those big frustrations.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she hates it when I'm gone. And I love being home. I like being at the shop. I like where I live. I live on a lake. I like to fish. I haven't gotten to do that yet this year. I used to fish every day almost. Just walk down to the bank and fish for an hour, and I just feel guilty now because we got so much going on. But now that we're getting back a hold of our car working well again, and we're winning races and seem to be on top of things, I'll be able to stop again and start doing a little bit of fishing. And fishing is, had a guy who worked for me said that every time I was fishing during the week, he goes, I know we're going to win. So that's what he does his best thinking. So it is somewhat true. I enjoy it too.
Well, you said earlier in the interview that you overanalyze things, and when we talked to you earlier in the week, I said, think about this question for me. What's one thing that you would change about dirt racing? It could be anything in the world. Maybe it makes your life easier. Maybe it makes competition better. But what's one thing that you would change about dirt racing if you could?
Boy, you did ask me that, and I did. I thought about it for a minute and went back to work, but there's probably a lot of things that, number one, I don't think that, and I've said this in interviews in the past, even 20 years ago, I said this, that nothing there is dirt but the racetrack. And I think that, you could draw a lot more people and a lot more wives and girlfriends, and you could even bring, even a different level of person. Some people just don't like getting dirty, and there's not a real. That's another reason why I said that about that dogleg straightaway in the grandstand side. That's terrible, So just trying to clean it up a little bit and come up with even maybe some vortex walls that turn the dust and dirt back into the center of the racetrack and not on the fans.
That's a good idea. I like that. That's probably one of the more original ones we've gotten so far.
Okay.
Very nice.
We go about 50-50 with the racers saying something on the fan side, and then the other half says something. Like I said, we've had people say that the tires never wear out. If I'm leading, there's no cautions. About half of it's driver stuff, and the other half's been fan stuff. So it's interesting to get your guys' perspectives on that.
Yeah.
I don't even like, when I go up to watch other heat races and different things, I don't, sitting there having to cover my eyes, and then I get my hair full of dirt and stuff plod. I just think there's probably could be more thought put into. There's nothing wrong with a little dirt in your beer, but sometimes some places it's ridiculous, and I think you get a lot more fans, I guess. That's all.
We need to get a chemist that creates some hybrid dirt that doesn't create dust.
I think there's people, they're actually working on that. There's different things. I've seen chemicals and things that people have been using to do that, and some of them are somewhat effective. I don't know, I think just get that Mississippi gumbo dirt. That stuff there, once you get the initial crust blown off, that stuff's as clean as it gets. So I don't know. There's probably a lot of things that we can do.
Scott, thanks so much for your time. We'll let you get back to working on the car. We look forward to seeing you Tuesday night at I-80 Speedway.
You bet. We'll be there.
Have a safe trip up.
All right. Thanks.
So again, you're getting your tickets in advance, I-80Speedway.com, I-80Speedway.com. You're actually going to save a little bit of money. If you purchase your tickets before, I think it's midnight tonight.
I think it's Sunday.
Yeah, tonight.
Yep, tonight.
I think it's 11 p.m. tonight. Either way, get your tickets now. Get on I-80Speedway.com right now. You're going to get your tickets for $3 cheaper, and they open the gates up for advanced ticket sales at 4:30 to be able to go in and get the prime seats. And then at 5 o'clock, when the $29 day of ticket sales are purchased, then people get to go in. So you're going to get first prime pick at I-80 Speedway coming up Tuesday night. And then A-Mods also to help finish off the night. And any A-Mod driver that races on Tuesday night for the Go 50 gets an automatic free entry into the Charlie Clark Memorial.
That'll work.
So it's going to be a good couple of nights of racing. These are two of my favorite races. I hate to jinx anything, but I hope desperately we get this race in on Tuesday night because there's a little bit of rain in the I shouldn't say a little bit. There's a good chance of rain in the forecast on Monday. Hopefully that will give Steve and all the track prep crew at I-80 Speedway enough time to get it ready to go for Tuesday night racing, and we'll have a good Go 50 with the Lucas Oil Late Model guys. Let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3, and we're going to talk to Tommy Johnson Jr., NHRA driver. He's down at Kansas for the Kansas Nationals at Heartland Park, Topeka. We're going to talk to him about what it's like to drive down that drag strip at a nice clip. He a little faster.
100 miles an hour and 60 feet.
Little more than the Ranger can do. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, and time to talk a little bit of NHRA. A lot of the times we only talk about turning left. Maybe sometimes we talk about turning right when we go to road course racing or dirt track racing, but this time we're going to talk about turning as little as possible. And we're talking NHRA Kansas Nationals. Been going on Friday and Saturday this weekend. There's still tickets available to get down today for the final event, and we're joined by the fastest qualifier, Tommy Johnson Jr. How you doing, sir?
Hey, pretty good, guys. Enjoying this weekend.
Oh, it's it's going to be a great time. Hopefully, we can continue this weather today, and we can get down there, get some people down to Heartland Park, Topeka, to watch a little bit of drag racing. I noticed on your stat sheet that I think the fastest you've ever gone is 326 point something, incredibly stupid fast. What? I mean, just that's got to be.
Dan's out of breath talking about it.
I mean, we talk about sprint cars doing $140, $150, but you're over doubling that. Can you feel it when you get up to that fast that you're breaking the 300, 320 markers?
Yeah, after a while, it's amazing that you can tell. I can tell you if it ran 318 or 324. It just how much it's planting you in the seat of the car and how hard in the sound of the engine and just, you can feel the speed. And after a while, doing it so many years, you can, I can tell you when a couple mile an hour difference and when it's really charging and when it's not. And everybody asks, what's that feel like? But there's nothing you can describe it to. I mean, these cars accelerate so fast. I mean, 0 to 100 in under a second. So it's phenomenal. And you're out of breath when you get out of the car to the other end. It takes your breath away.
Hey, Tommy, are you one of the people now? I've noticed a few of the drivers the last few years starting to wear mouthpieces to keep their teeth together for when they get a little tire shake. You doing that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's funny. You shake the tires really hard in one of these cars. And tire shake's kind of hard to describe, but it's the best thing I can describe it to is like putting your head in a paint shaker at the paint store when the tire's actually trying to run over itself, and it just beats you to death. So it only takes a couple times of doing that not to wear a mouthpiece.
Well, my dad told me a long time ago I wasn't supposed to put my head in that paint shaker, so I don't know what that feels like.
Dan has been in the dryer before, though.
It was warm. I thought, what the heck? Let's give it a shot. So give me we always try to compare it to us everyday civilians that don't do this kind of thing. But like when you're taking off on a jetliner, can you give me an estimate of that's half, that's a quarter, that's an eighth of when they take off on the takeoff? What that, you get set back in your seat a little bit. Is it anything like that, or are we just so far down the scale?
Well, that'll give you an idea of acceleration, but you can multiply that by about 1,000. It's just a tremendous shot. I mean, when you hit the throttle on these cars, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going straight forward and in a big hurry. And like I said, 0 to 100 in less than a second. And we did that in 60 feet. So it's just incredible acceleration. And even now, I mean, back when I first started, an eighth of a mile, ET was, if we saw a little over 240 miles an hour was good. I've run 282 miles an hour in 660 feet now. So, I mean, the acceleration is just incredible, how fast these cars get to speed and how quick we get down the racetrack.
How many Saturday nights did you spend down the street over at Eddyville over there? I know I raced over there with my Super Streeter a few times.
I tell you what, I grew up at Eddyville. It was about 15 miles from Ottumwa, and I started racing there when I was 8 years old, and that's kind of where the bug got me. My dad raced there every weekend, and I started when I was young, and said, well, I'd like to do this for a career, and it's been fortunate enough for it to work out. And the funny thing right now is that my crew chief on my fun car is from Ottumwa, Iowa. We're both from the same town. He raced at Eddyville, and he went with me one time when I was racing Top Fuel and said, I'd like to do this. And really a smart guy, John Collins, is he took to it really quick, and I helped get him a job out here in drag racing and worked his way from the bottom end guy on the the lowest job on the totem pole. And now he's the crew chief, so it's kind of neat to be reunited to Eddyville guys going out here and racing every weekend on the national team.
No, I'm just glad you didn't say it was Radar O'Reilly, because that was going to get me going here.
Yeah, or Tom Arnold, that's all I hear.
Let's go back to one of our favorite people in the NASCAR ranks. You drove for the coach.
Yeah, Joe Gibbs. Yeah, back in '99, Joe. A lot of people don't realize Joe got started in drag racing before he went to NASCAR. And when I joined the team in '99, he had the two NASCAR teams and the two drag racing teams. And I was in between rides at the time, and they were looking at switching driver. Got the opportunity to drive for Gibbs, and it kind of set me on a different career path. Up until then, I had drove for my family's team, and we just couldn't afford to keep racing anymore. And that was my first hired driver position, was driving for Gibbs, and it kind of got everybody to notice some things, and from there on went to Don Perdome for the Snake after that. So it was just kind of what set things up.
Was that intimidating for you to be hired to be a hired gun and a hired driver, and you weren't just doing it for your own family racing? Now you actually had to do it to appease other people?
It took a lot of changes. For the years and years we drove our own family team. I mean, I drove the truck. I worked on the car. I did a lot. I mean, didn't have any money. I had to do it all. So when they hire you to drive, I'm like, yeah, I can help you with it. No, don't touch it. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean don't touch it? And it took a little getting used to, not working on the car between rounds and just, go sign autographs, don't touch anything. And then you felt the pressure. You're hired to perform, and if you don't perform, you're going to hear about it. So, when you have your own car, if you don't perform, well, you yell at yourself. But if you don't perform and you're working for somebody, they come yell at you. So it took a little bit to get used to that transition of not being so hands-on and being so involved with it. Just do your job and your job only.
What's the maintenance like on these cars? We kind of talk about, we come from the world of like 410 sprint cars and 360 sprint car engines, and that, a 410's got to be refreshed probably
600-700 laps at the price of $12 to $15,000.
So what?
And you guys do that every round at least.
Yeah, my guys would love that. We make one run in this car down the track, and we rebuild the engine. We tear the engine clear apart. We try to keep the same short block in there with just the crankshaft in it. We replace the rods and pistons every run, all the bearings, for cylinder heads. We cycle them out. We don't necessarily just go one run. We'll have to take them apart, measure them. We have tools to measure everything. If they're in tolerance, they'll be rebuilt, put back in the car. But if not, they're out, they go. So there's a lot of maintenance. It's a total engine rebuild every run. The clutch, we redo the clutch every run. So these guys are so good. And we do this in about 30 minutes is our average, because we have to be turned around and back up there and ready to run within an hour. So to tear it all apart, rebuild it, fire it, make sure everything's right, and then get up there. These guys are pretty good. There's 7 or 8 guys, and each one of them has their own job.
Out of what you could tell from the sport, I know you were just kind of talking about it's nice being the hired driver because you don't have to worry about a lot of different aspects of the sport, but what do you think is the most expensive part of NHRA drag racing?
Well, I mean, if you're on a team, it's obviously the salaries of everybody that it takes to do the job. I mean, there's so many people on a team that the salaries eat it all up. But other than that, it's parts. These things eat parts. And I said, nitromethane is what they run on, and that's $25 a gallon. We burn about 13 gallons in a run, but I said they run on money. You just open the fuel tank and pour money in. That's what they run on. But it's parts and then people to make them run. But there's nothing like nitromethane. When you put that in a tank, you're going to go fast.
You've been to all the major tracks, I'm sure, in your career, even though your career's had a few breaks in it here and there. What's the favorite 1,000 feet that you run?
I have that question a lot, and there's certain tracks that stick out in your mind. I mean, Bristol, Tennessee is a beautiful setting. It's in between 2 mountains. The sound echoes off of them. All the Bruton Smith tracks are beautiful facilities, and you have one.
That 4-wide's got to be
Epping,
fun.
Yeah, 4-wide's kind of interesting. It's different for sure, but then you have a track like Epping, New Hampshire. It's old school. I mean, it's an older track. It's not the modern facility. But, man, I love it. It's just an old-school setting, and I love it up there, and the fans are avid fans. And there's a couple I don't like. I know that. They stick out in my mind more than the ones that stick out that I like.
It's got to be pretty awesome to have one of your primary sponsors being the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a very unique situation. Make-A-Wish doesn't spend $1 on our car, and there's no corporate money at all. It is privately funded by Terry Chandler. She loves drag racing, and fortunate life, and she loves giving back to others, and so she sponsors the team, pays for everything, and then donates that space away. And we raise awareness for what great things Make-A-Wish does for kids that are going through some life struggles. And we have kids out in every venue on Saturday, a group of kids from that area that have been through the Make-A-Wish program. They have a wish coming up, and it's a little bonus for them to come out to the track and cheer on the Make-A-Wish cars. And Terry likes to say they can come out and cheer on the car, and it's kind of puts racing in perspective sometimes. I mean, you can go out and have a bad weekend and a loss, but if you see what those kids are through and have them come out there and just cheer and be happy no matter what, it puts things in perspective for you.
Oh, one thing, my history, I've got a bunch of years working for NASCAR, plus on my own personal drag racing stuff, so I've been around both sports a ton, and you probably won't find too many more philanthropic people than what you're going to see in the racing industry as a whole between NASCAR and NHRA, and even the IndyCar guys do it.
Yeah, it's a great community, great, everybody loves to give back. I mean, we all are very fortunate to do what we love to do and be able to race for a living, and there's a lot of people that don't have that opportunity, and you see these kids out there, they're going through struggles, but man, they're out there, they're cheering, they're having a ball, and see, not only the kids smile, but the parents, because they're going through this with them, so it's been a really neat thing with doing this with Terry and having the kids at the track every week, and see not only the kids smile, but she smiles as big as they do. It's really a cool deal. I've enjoyed it. We've got to meet a lot of different people, and 2 years ago in Las Vegas, we were able to grant a wish, and you've not really done anything until you've been a part of granting a wish. And we had a gentleman that wanted to be a race car driver and win a trophy for his team, and we were able to make that happen. He and I raced against another. Antron Brown and Jack Beckman, 2 world champions, and he and I beat them in a 2-seat dragster and went 147 miles per hour, and just smile at the end of the racetrack. You'll never forget that memory.
Tommy Johnson Jr., we always do appreciate you joining us. Best of luck today for the NHRA Kansas Nationals during the finals. We hope to see you up on that podium hosting the trophy as the winner.
Wally.
The Wally.
The Wally. I hope we can. I tell you what, my sister won this race years ago when she was 17, youngest female to ever win an NHRA national event. So I'm kind of slacking. I've never won a ticket, so I need to get that Wally today.
All right, thanks. Good luck, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Tommy.
So again, you can get your tickets still today. There's plenty of time to get your tickets. Head down to Kansas. Only 2.5 hours away. You've got plenty of time to get down there before the gates open for the NHRA Kansas Nationals. I want to get us down there sometime. Jim Howe, one of our the Tuffy Auto Service Center, he a supporter of the show last year and looking to do some more stuff with us this year. He's going down there to grab some audio from us today and this weekend, frankly. And I want to get down there one of these times because I think it'd be really cool to go down there and just experience the event.
I could show you some more stuff, Daniel.
You've always got more stuff you can show me. Your never-ending pot of knowledge. That is Dirk.
And every once in a while, I get to use some of it.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Turn number 4. We'll wrap it all up. This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, heading into turn number 4. Just about ready to wrap the show up, and let's kick off turn 4. We got a couple of news and notes we're going to talk about. We'll preview some of the racing action to come this week, but let's talk about Stewart-Haas Racing and Kevin Harvick. It was big news on Tuesday when there started to be some reports that there had been an offer from Hendrick Motorsports for Kevin to come and race the number 5 for 2017, and there's a couple of hurdles he had to get over if that was the actual case. And frankly, there's a way that you kind of sift through some of these news articles, and some people are getting really smart about it on Facebook. When you see an article about, Obama just did this, and liberals are pissed off, or liberals are frustrated, and then you read the .com where it's from, it's clearly a fake site. But anyways, that's kind of where this was coming from. There was a place called Breaking NASCAR News is where I found it on. They were the ones that really carrying this banner as far as I was concerned with the Hendrick Motorsports offer. But then so the offer was that Kevin would come and race at Hendrick Motorsports, take over the 5. They didn't really say where Casey would go. He has one more year on his contract in the 2017 season, so Casey would have to go somewhere. You said maybe Rick would buy his contract out.
Yeah, that was just one of the options. The option would have put him in an Xfinity Series car for a year, which since Hendrick doesn't have any, that would be something that he would probably work on with Junior and take him over to JR Motorsports. Yeah.
You'd probably have to still pay him his full contract, though. It'd be the most expensive Xfinity contract in history, but you know, it'd be a way to get him out.
Well, it'd be a way to have him earn some money.
Yeah.
Because he'd never earn winning a race what he would be getting paid to drive that race.
So Kevin Harvick came out Tuesday afternoon when all this was kind of boiling up again and said somebody's just stirring some S word up. Obviously, I'm going to bleep it out because we're on the radio and the FCC doesn't see kindly that kind of stuff.
And me personally, I do believe that person that was stirring that stuff up was Miss Elena Harvick, using that as a bargaining tool. Hey, look, Tony. Yeah. They really want us over here at Hendrick. That little offer you made us just ain't going to cut it. And that's all. To me, that's all it was.
And that very well could have been the deal. This all could have been nothing. Who knows? But, when you're talking about getting a deal done, this is a smart deal. And I'm sorry, we're kind of fast-forwarding. So I believe it was on Thursday was when Stewart-Haas Racing announced we've signed a new multi-year deal with Kevin Harvick. He will remain in the number 4. We have a multi-year deal left with Rodney Childress. They're going to remain as a team for the foreseeable future. We're excited about, everyone's excited because I think this is one of the most dynamic and threatening team out there is Kevin Harvick in that number 4 team with Rodney Childress on the box.
And who do you think was most excited about it?
Delana?
Ford.
Oh. Yeah, and as Stewart-Haas Racing is switching over to Ford. So that puts that rumor to the end. But then you wonder about the complexity of this whole conversation of how did it get started? A lot of times these things aren't rumors just because somebody wants to do something. There's usually smoke where there's fire. You know what I mean? Or what's the old saying? Where there's smoke, there's fire. There was probably some truth to this rumor that Rick Hendrick probably did approach Kevin and say, hey, would you be interested in coming over here? And so Kevin went back to Tony and said, hey, Rick's talking to me. And so Tony said, let's draw up a contract. Let's get this over with. And I think Kevin enjoys being at Stewart-Haas Racing. He's obviously won a championship and been very successful. He is very good friends with Tony and all of his teammates. So it's a good situation for him to move. We talked about this a little bit before the show of the manufacturer change. I don't think that has any kind of factor to do with Kevin's decision. I think Kevin was going to stay with Stewart-Haas Racing regardless, and a lot of people have this brand loyalty with the engine that's in front of you, but I don't think it matters what engine's sitting in front of you as long as you're sitting in victory lane on a consistent basis.
Well, and like you said, his career was completely resurrected when he came over to Stewart-Haas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brand new Kevin Harvick, and when he originally joined the team, he was driver B. Behind Tony.
Quite frankly, yeah, it was at that time, it was Tony was number one, then Kevin, and they quickly signed. Was that the same year they signed Kurt Busch, and they all of a sudden expanded to a? No, that was the same year. That was the next year when they signed Danica, and then all of a sudden Gene Haas signed Kurt to join the team, and all of a sudden it went from Tony was happy with it being a 2-car team, then expanding to a 3-car team. And all of a sudden, oh wait, we got 4 cars.
Well, Danica pays for herself.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
she's a marketing guru, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's all done. And then, like I said, Gene Haas actually signed Kurt. That was his doing. But, I mean, there's supposed to be a 50-50 partnership in there, if that's a true 50-50 or how much reign Tony has. I'm sure Tony had to okay it, because he was going to have to work with Kurt. I
think it's a good move for Kevin. I honestly, we've kind of talked about it this year. I don't think the last 3 years Hendrick Motorsports has been the number one team like they always talk about. When you talk about ranking teams, Hendrick Motorsports is always listed on top because of what Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus did for those 6, 8, 9 years.
Well, and Gordon.
Yeah, and Gordon too. And honestly, I think Hendrick right now is probably a third-ranked team. You talk about it today, this season so far, Joe Gibbs Racing is number 1. I think probably Stewart-Haas Racing is number 2, Hendrick, and then Penske. Yeah,
and see, I think, I'd have to put Hendrick and Stewart-Haas dead even behind Gibbs.
You think so?
Yeah, I think those two are pretty even, and then after that, there's really not a whole lot. And Penske might even be the number 2 team.
All right, we got a big week of racing to come this week. Today, obviously, the NHRA Kansas Nationals. We talked to Tommy Johnson Jr. in Turn 3, and we want to say thanks to him for joining us, and thanks everybody at the NHRA for giving us access to some of their drivers. Then we have the I-80 Go 50 coming up this Tuesday, and we talked to Scott Bloomquist in Turn number 2. Really cool deal we're doing with that. They're doing with that is that if you get your tickets in advance, you get in the gate 30 minutes before day of purchase people do. So you can get the prime seats out at the Speedway to watch Jimmy Owens, Jonathan Davenport, Scott Bloomquist, all the great Lucas Oil late model drivers out there race.
They're saving a few bucks if you get them a couple days early too, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're a little bit cheaper, as they always do. In advance is always a little bit cheaper because they want to see how many people are coming in. And then the U.S. MTS at Crawford County Speedway. I still want to get there one of these years and watch it, but I'm not going to be able to because I have obligations at Quaker Stake this year again. But great race from what I understand last year. I talked to PJ Pedersen, their announcer, their weekly announcer, and he said it was absolutely amazing race. They were really tearing the track was a fantastic surface. Just a heartbreaker for Jesse Sobbing, who spent a lot of time my first 2 years, my second and third year there as a weekly announcer, winning races and knowing how to get around that track. So he's going to have an edge on these guys, as I believe that is the second time the USMTS has headed back to Crawford County Speedway since it reopened. So a lot of great racing action to come this weekend, and then we have Charlotte coming up, but we're going to preview that next weekend, as Charlotte will be a Sunday night race for the Coca-Cola 600, longest race in the NASCAR schedule. So.
Yep, and get out and support your local dirt track, people. If you don't keep this racing alive at the local level, it's not going to be alive on the national level, so it's up to us to keep it going. So get out there and have a couple hot dogs or pork tenderloins are pretty
pork tenderloin
good.
Sandwich.
With mustard and extra pickle.
I like mayo on mine.
You're disgusting.
Oh, it's so good. It's so
Actually,
good.
what is really good on those bad boys is coleslaw.
Is it?
Oh.
I'll have to talk to him about maybe getting that for one night.
Coleslaw in there
that
is
would be
awesome.
Good. We'll do it all again next weekend. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Front Stretch. This is you're on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.